Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. In today's video, we are going to be comparing a fixed front sight block with a free float rail. As always, there are links down in that description where you can support what I do here on the channel. One of the #1 ways you can do that is by clicking that first link, which will bring you to the Firearm Freedom merchandise store. I'm very proud of the merchandise. You can find some pretty awesome shirt designs on there, including the one that I'm wearing in this video, which is a little bit of a spicier shirt. Some people might like it, some people might not, but it is what it is. I think it's a cool design, and I have it on my shirt store, so you guys can buy that and rep the brand that is Firearm Freedom. If you want to make sure these videos are not being hidden from your subscription feed, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, comment down below this video. This is going to be, I would say, a fun video, and I am very biased, so I have to get it right out in the open there. I am biased about this topic, so I'm going to do the best that I can to look at it objectively. This is a question that we get a ton, and we get a lot of folks coming into the gun shop that I work at with a standard Ruger AR-556 or an M&P 15 Sport 2 or any other base level AR-15 that has a fixed A2 style front sight post. And typically what they're asking is, hey, I know this is kind of a cheaper thing to have on a rifle, or I want the look of a free float rail, or I think I need a free float rail, or the practical way to look at it, I need more accessories. I need those accessories further forward on the rail, so therefore I want a free float rail. But regardless, a lot of the questions come down to how can I change this out, or should I change this out? And I see a lot of folks kind of phasing out the A2 front sight post on their rifles. I actually kind of have a little bit of both. My AR collection is almost split damn near right down the middle in how many have an A2 fixed front post and how many are free float. And I think there are benefits to both, which we are going to talk about in today's video. Now, real quick, I'll showcase the guns that I'm going to be picking up here. I have kind of a long and short variation of both. This is the vibes right here. This is a Colt fixed carry handle upper. This is actually an original M4 upper, 14.5 inch pin and welded with the Silencer Co. ASR mount on it. I should have a video up of this on the channel. If I do have one up, I'll throw a card up in the right hand corner of the screen. Awesome OD Web GAU sling on there, just great rifle overall. And I also have a Knights Armament quad rail on there. So this has a fixed front sight post, and you guys will notice a common theme here with the drop-in quad rail. For the shorty in the corner of the fixed front sight post, we have the 10.5 build that I've featured on my channel now a couple of times. Once again, I'll throw the most recent video up in a card, and this has actually just a super cheap 10.5 Palmetto State Armory fixed A2 upper, and I've never had issues with this upper. It's been running great for me, and I just kind of made it this like weird Frankenstein affordable cool detachable carry handle build. And this one has, once again, the fixed front sight post has a 10.5 barrel, so this is again the shorter variation, and I do have a drop-in Midwest Industries quad rail on this. For the full-size free float variation is just a personal build that I did. I was trying to throw a bunch of really nice parts into one rifle for a standard 16-inch gun. So this has a Geisley 15-inch M-LOK rail, arrow upper, billet lower, a bunch of cool stuff going on here, but 16-inch free float gun. I have a video of this up on the channel, throw that up in the card. And last but not least, we have my super shorty here, which is a 7.5-inch 300 blackout. This has a Geisley free float rail, so not a fixed front sight post on this guy. And this is going to be the short configuration of the free float rail option on the opposite side of the aisle. I do have a video up of this on the channel. Once again, it's up in the card. So first and foremost, what is an A2 front sight post? So you guys will see these commonly on more entry-level AR-15s, but they're also on really cool high-end guns, and it really just depends on the setup. A fixed A2 front sight post is going to look like that. And it is going to be a forged, typically there are some that are milled, front sight post that is on top of your gas block. So that's what a lot of people aren't really familiar with. They don't understand that this is not just a front sight. This is your gas block right here. So when a lot of people come in, they say, hey, can you just like take this off entirely and put something else on for a free float rail? We can, but you do need to replace this section here with a low pro gas block and a few different changes to the upper itself to get a free float rail, but it is definitely doable. You're also going to notice something that we're going to talk about a little bit later with these front sight posts, and that is going to be 2 pins drilled through the barrel itself that are holding in this front sight post and gas block combination. That is very, very important when we're looking at a gas block as a whole. One of the biggest things that people complain about with a front sight post like this is optics, right? They don't want it getting in the way of optics. Well, typically speaking, if you have an optic that is over 3 power, so if you have, say, a 1 to 6 optic on here and you consistently have it at 3 to 6 power, you will actually see right through that front sight post. It'll go straight on through, and for whatever weird black magic science reasons, it does not show up in the lens of the optic. So it is not as big of a deal as you might think for optics and the front sight post. I am a little bit of a fan when it comes to the front sight post. I like them, they are the vibe, and there are a lot of cool features about them that we're going to talk about. On the opposite end of that spectrum, we have a free float rail, which you guys see here. And this still has, obviously, of course, a gas block that is hidden underneath the rail, and that gas block is low profile. Since we no longer have that large gas block holding in the handguard, we can have this free float rail that stretches all the way out in front of the barrel. And this is where you see a lot of folks kind of drifting towards more recently nowadays, and you're seeing a lot of rifles just come right out of the factory with a free float rail. You're even seeing these free float rails come right from the factory on a really affordable AR-15, so these are definitely becoming a lot more well-known and a lot more preferred for a lot of people. The benefit with a free float rail is it is going to allow you to spread out your accessories on that rail, especially when we are looking at, say, a carbine length rail system like we have on this Colt here versus a super long 15-inch free float rail over here. They do, of course, make mid-length and even rifle length fixed front sight post guns, and they are very cool, and it also gives you a lot more room for your accessories. Most of the time you are seeing a carbine length fixed front sight post gun like this here. You can see that obviously when we're comparing the rail space, there is much more rail space on the free float 15-inch rail. Now, these barrels are very similar, but of course this is a shorter 14.5-inch barrel. This is a 16-inch barrel. But regardless, you can see that if we had a free float rail on this side here, we would have a lot more room to mount things like this Streamlight ProTac. Now, I don't have a lot of things mounted on this particular rifle right now. This is a rifle that I'm constantly adding parts to, and then also taking parts away and scavenging them for other builds. But if you start looking at things like lights and lasers for night vision shooting, or other types of illuminators for night vision shooting, and whatever else you might want to put on the end of your rifle, that stuff can start getting very challenging to fit in a compact rail setup like this. So that fixed front sight post can start getting in the way a little bit. Now, there are some kind of cool, nice advantages for other rails out there that actually go around that front sight post and stretch out into the front of the gun to still give you a ton of room for mounting your accessories and spread them out in front of the rail. The other downfall with mounting accessories all the way back here on a fixed front post gun is the shadow that you're going to get from the barrel. You guys can see with my flashlight here, if I'm shining that upwards, I have a lot of shadow coming from this big, ginormous barrel that's right off to the left-hand side. This is typical with a lot of basic entry-level 16-inch AR-15s with a fixed front sight post. This is another reason why a lot of folks switch to the free float rail. It gets that light all the way out in the front, up by the muzzle of the rifle, and it allows there to be a lot less shadow. There are some different light bar options that will drift that light further forward depending on the setup that you have, but remember, you still have to get to that light and activate it. Whether it's with a pressure pad or a standard tail cap, you have to have that item reach up to the top and get to that light. So that's just something to think about. And that issue of shadow is much less of a problem on a shorter barrel 10.5 inch fixed front sight post gun like you see here. What's the deal? Why do I like the fixed front sight post so much? What are my arguments for it? First and foremost, it is the durability of the front sight and gas block. You are rarely going to see, if ever, a low pro gas block with 2 pins through the barrel on a free float rifle. And that is just the way that it is. Now, there are a lot of low pro gas blocks that come from the factory pinned through the barrel, and there are also set screws. That's awesome. It allows the gas block to not rotate, and that is a very strong design. But it's still not as strong as 2 pins going through that gas block. This thing is never going anywhere, and I promise you guys, if you are in a situation where this gas block breaks free of those 2 pins for whatever reason, this rifle is very much out of commission in every way, shape, or form, because it has probably been through some hell, and I would imagine it's in a million pieces. The other thing is that this, as we've mentioned, is also a front sight. That is going to give you one of the most durable sighting systems on your rifle that you could possibly have. If this sight breaks, and let's say in this case this carry handle rear sight breaks, the rifle is once again probably out of commission. Of course, it is not as fast or high speed as a red dot or holographic sight that you guys are seeing nowadays, or an LPVO, or any other option that you could have for a sighting system on a rifle. I use iron sights all of the time on my rifles, and I've actually grown to really enjoy them, and they can be very fast once you train with them more and more, and I love the simplicity. This 14.5 inch rifle is so lightweight, it is so durable, and it is so rugged. There's nothing really on here that can break and cause my rifle to not really get accurate shots downrange, and that's huge in my opinion, depending on the use that you have. Now, of course, something like this for, say, a night vision gun is not going to be ideal. It's really difficult for me to outfit this with all of my night vision accessories. Can it be done? Absolutely. But is it challenging? Yes. Is a free float gun a lot easier to do that with? Absolutely. There is one kind of catch-22 here that is the best of both worlds, and I give props to you people that do this. If you have a rifle like this, please don't ever do this to a factory Colt upper, but if you have a standard non-collectible upper and you want to permanently modify the gas block and front sight post to be a free float rail, the easiest and most cost-effective way to do this, and coincidentally also the way to retain the strength of the gas block portion of this fixed front sight post, is to cut the top of the front sight off, to cut the bayonet lug, and also to cut that little sling loop section there off and round them over. This can be done with an angle grinder or a bunch of other different tools that everyone probably has at their disposal. And then you essentially have a pinned low pro gas block that you can put a free float rail over. And that would be the conversion that I would recommend. It allows you to retain those 2 pins, although you are permanently modifying that front sight post. You're getting an incredibly durable, rugged, and reliable gas block with a free float rail. And that is an awesome combination of the two. An interesting part of the discussion starts to come in when we are looking at shorter platforms like this. I have a 7.5 inch here and I have a 10.5 inch here. The differences in overall rail space start to kind of go down quite a bit. Now, in all the defense of the free float rail, when you go below a 10.5 inch barrel like this, it becomes nearly impossible to get that fixed front sight post on there. And I don't know of any factory barrel right now that is coming with one that's 7.5 inches. So once you get below this length, you're really kind of out of luck. You're going to have to go with the free float rail, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we are looking at, say, a 10.5 inch, imagine if this was, and another 10.5 inch, I really don't know that you're losing out on that much rail space by going with a fixed front sight post. So I don't know if the argument of space really matters as much on a shorter 10.5 inch gun. It really just depends on what you are using it for. I get much less shadow like this, and I also still get a very rugged and reliable front sight. We have to also mention just the vibe of the front sight. It's got a vibe, and it's pretty nice. I really enjoy it. In something like a 7.5 inch barrel, this is obviously going to be ideal when we are looking at rail space. We got a ton of extra room up here because I am able to get my mounting space all the way up to the top. I mean, we are right at the tippy top of that barrel. I could not get this rail further out if I tried. So that's going to give me a lot more options and a lot more sight radius on this smaller rifle here. On a 7.5 inch barrel with a short rail, you're really not getting much of a sight radius, but now I can kind of bump that out by another inch, which is awesome, and it also allows me to mount things further up on the rail, which is huge on something like a small gun like this. I can really get everything compact, but also spread out enough that I can get my hands on the gun and not just have it be super obnoxious. A lot of folks on their free float rifles go with something like a Daniel Defense fixed front sight on top of the rail. This isn't a bad option at all, and it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. You can have that fixed front sight on there, have that rigid front sight post. You might even be able to get a pinned gas block underneath. And if you want to, for whatever reason, depending on an optic that you have or another reason, you can take off that front sight right off the rail like any other sight and not have any issues with it. So that's a really good way to go. And there's also kind of a super big oddball that we could talk about briefly. You guys might see some back roll running now, but it's my Colt 11.5 inch monolithic upper. That has actually a fixed front sight post that is folding, and that's a rare one. You don't see that much anymore. That was big a few years ago when free floats were not quite as common, and that's another option as well. If you want the ability to have that fixed front sight post, but you want that top portion to fold down for optics or whatever other reason and still kind of get that retro vibe, that's also another great option. All of this, of course, is in good fun when I'm talking about why I have my biases for a fixed front sight post. I love them both, and quite frankly, it depends on what you are looking to use your rifle for. This is more so a video kind of directed at the folks that think this is a completely obsolete option. There are a lot of beginners out there that see the rifle and they're really bummed out about it because they just feel like they have just this basic rifle that is not usable at all because there's a fixed front sight post. And that's just not the case. In most applications, that's going to work just fine. In fact, it's going to be awesome. If you are using the rifle and you need to mount things in areas that front sight is just going to get in the way of, then of course a free float is going to be what you want to do. That's going to wrap this video up. If you guys have any other questions about this topic or anything else on the channel, let me know down in the comment section below, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, head up to that description, check out those links, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.